Okay, so back to our randoms. We got 28 randoms left over the course of probably 4 videos, so we'll try and do 7 randoms in this video. Let's see what we roll next. 3, which is one of the long ones, Synduality. This was a split core series that I had only seen talked about once on my timeline. No clue what it's about. Let's give it a go, I guess.
It's been a hot minute since I've seen some grade A anime bullshit. I got an episode and a half into Synduality Noir, and I was struck by how, despite this being very obviously a generic sci-fi slop thing that they just kind of threw together, despite that, how, competent it was. It's not well animated, it's super mediocre, but, there is something competent and compelling about the way it's, directed and, paced and so on. And then I realized it was, I scanned the staff list and found out it was directed by Yusuke Yamamoto, who is the director for, Yamano Susume. Which makes sense since this is also from Studio 8-Bit, who you would better know for the Re-Slime anime, and also Yamano Susume. Yusuke Yamamoto is very much an underrated director, and man, he is doing the best he can with this giant pile of sci-fi slop. There is nothing interesting at all about this setting in any way whatsoever. The characters are bottom barrel tropes. But you know what? I do like me a tsundere. I really do. So this Ellie character was clicking something in my brain. For as very basic as she was. But what made me drop this was we got to about halfway through. Actually, I can see it on my TV right now. About 14 and a half minutes into the second episode, our main character, Kanata, just starts, hating on himself. Being, woe is me, I'm not a good drifter. My mage just should go find another drifter. And you know what? Maybe I would feel sympathetic to this character if this happened 6 episodes later, because I know absolutely fucking nothing about this guy other than he likes to tinker with stuff and he has no aptitude for drifting in this world, which means absolutely fucking nothing if you've seen anime, because that's such a common fucking trope that it's beaten to fucking death. I have no time for this man's whinging. Let's move on.
Okay, Synduality Noir is off the list. Let's roll again and see what we get next. It's going to be 26. Meiji Gekken 1874. This is, I'm going to guess by Meiji, that this is a period piece. Also based on the year, I guess. No clue what else it's about. Let's find out.
That seemed like totally bog standard average. This is, as I predicted, a period piece, but so far it seems to be a fairly straightforward period piece, which normally I would be into. I don't really know a lot about Japanese history. This takes place 7 years into the Meiji Restoration, which I really only know about through Rurouni Kenshin, to be honest. And even then, I don't know that much. So I do want to know more about that era, but I'm not going to learn more about that era from watching anime. I just need to research it. And this seems like totally fine so far, but I'm not particularly attached to any of the characters. At first I thought it was gonna be like shockingly good, because like the opening scene is like pretty fucking brutal in terms of its combat. But then there was some stuff like later there was a fight scene where like some fucking wacky shit was happening, where it's like, oh, this is, maybe it's not a straightforward supernatural thing. Like there's this one shot where like this guy gets shot with like 7 different arrows, and they like, it sends him flying like 30, 50 feet back and pins him to a wall. I'm like, okay. You had me with the realism, and now you don't have me with the realism. So... And it's a kind of a spotty production on the whole. I did notice a lot of French names in the credits, especially with the background art, the background art is pretty solid. And then I noticed this was a Crunchyroll original. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But also, why? Why this? Why a story about a former samurai who was previously fighting against the new government and then became a rickshaw driver and then becomes a cop, apparently? Not a story I'm particularly interested in. And the wacky shit with the whoever this gray-haired dude is, he's not a fun character at all. Not digging him. Also, CG horses. So many CG horses. They're terrible. They're fucking awful. Yeah, this is just a pretty average production. I don't feel particularly compelled to watch any more of it, unfortunately.
Right. Meiji Gekken off the list. Let's roll again and see what we get. 1. Okay. Undead Unluck. I read a few volumes of the manga and I was kind of iffy on it. So I think it's David Production is doing this one. So let's see if it is a good adaptation.
Okay, I got through as much of that as I could. I got through, surprisingly, 11 episodes of Undead Unluck before I just got bored with it. Slash frustrated, slash annoyed. Right off the bat, I want to talk about something that only, like, 5 other people besides me care about. And that is that for at least the opening few episodes, the editing in this is fucking terrible. It is so poorly cut together. And that is because the show is directed by Yuki Yase. Now, you can go to my main channel and see what I had to say about him in my video on Fire Force. I actually just rewatched that just to see if the same ideas hold up. And yeah, it's exactly the same thing he did with Fire Force, like, what, not 5 years ago? 4 years ago? So, like, these really awkwardly cut together things. The cuts don't bleed into each other well. There's terrible pacing between cuts, like the amount of time between cuts is terrible. I think it gets better as the show goes on, or maybe I'm just adjusting to his terrible timing. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it gets better as the show goes on, which is what people said about Fire Force. I didn't watch more than like 4 episodes of Fire Force, I think, because it was still terrible editing. But apparently it takes him a while to get the editing down when he starts a new series. I don't know why. I'll have to go back and rewatch Zaragoto to see how he did there, because that was another series that he was the director for. Although he was also like he was like the series director, but that also had Akiyuki Shinbo as like chief director, whatever the hell that means. So who knows how much of the reins he actually had on that. But anyway, sorry, it's like 11 at night when I'm recording this and I'm frustrated. The editing's terrible for the first few episodes. I almost gave up then, but I was like, man, David Productions putting their whole David Produci into this. And you know what? For the most part, it's really fucking cool looking. Really great background art. Not a lot of compositing issues, except for like the effects animation. Like, there was a really fucking terrible fire effect in episode 10, the part with the alien invasion. And pretty much whenever large bodies of water are involved, it's like really terrible CG. But aside from that, like, it's got some pretty solid character designs. Like, Andy has one of my favorite character designs from a Jump character that I've seen in a while. And personality, too. I like him a lot. The color design's pretty solid. And you know what? The story has a lot of really great ideas. When it's not copying those ideas from someone else, we'll get to that in a second. But, like, the core of this series has something to it. Like, for as unshaky ground as the foundation is for the relationship between Fuko and Andy, I actually do feel some chemistry between them. There is something there. I like the concept of this quest system, where it's like you have to complete all of the quests, otherwise a penalty is added. However, every time it introduces a cool idea, it has to fuck it up somehow. With Fuko and Andy, the fucking it up is the groping thing, which I think is the reason why I dropped the manga in the first place. I think I got through, like, probably less than 20 chapters of the manga. So technically I got further in the anime than I did in the manga. But then with this Union thing, okay, so it's initially positioned as the Union is hunting Fuko down because they deemed her a threat to the world. And then as soon as... So, like, the Union is set up as this, like, evil organization almost. That is how it's framed at the start of this series. And then once they join the Union after defeating two other people, it's immediately just like, oh, the Union was actually the good guys the whole time because they were keeping the world in order because of this apocalypse bullshit. And just the transition from bad to good is just, like, really glossed over. And it's just such a waste of a moral quandary. Like, it's framed as like, alright, we're going to get into the Union and we're going to change them for good. And then it's like, oh, we only have like 2 fuck-ups left before the world ends, so we actually have to do everything that this book says. So you've just taken the moral quandary out of everything. Like, there is no... Like, if that had not been a thing in it, we could have actually seen, like, oh, Fuko and Andy, like, climbing the ranks of the Union. And then, like, once they get to more influence, they have a say over how this organization operates. But if there's no point to that because the world ends if you don't fulfill all the quests this stupid book tells you, then what's the point? So it just feels like a dropped idea. And then there are the ideas that it just copies from other places, specifically from other Shonen Jump manga. Like, the part where I dropped it, which was on the cruise ship, which is where they infiltrate a black market run by the mafia, and suddenly a group of other people, a troop, you might say, interrupts everything and starts killing people. What? Hunter x Hunter? What's that? Never heard of it. So there's that. Like, the character Nico, who is, like, very obviously just a copy of Mayuri from Bleach, with his, like, mad scientist kind of shtick. Also, that's another idea that they just fucking botched and just, like, completely lowered the stakes of. Like, so, because they fail the quest that the book said, it adds in the concept of galaxy, which was a really cool idea of, like, oh, there was no galaxy before, it was just Earth. And then when you add in galaxy, that adds in aliens who want to conquer Earth. And when I saw that, I thought it was going to be like, oh, every time a new rule is added, they have to, like, adjust themselves to society now. But instead, it's just like, oop, I'm a mad science guy, I know everything, here is everything that happened. You don't have to do any work whatsoever. And that is so fucking boring. Speaking of new rules that get added. It technically didn't copy this from somewhere else, because I don't think I looked it up, I looked up the chapters just to make sure, and it hadn't happened yet by the time Chainsaw Man did it. But Chainsaw Man did it better. Like, this concept of, like, spoilers for part 1 of Chainsaw Man, if you haven't read it, but whenever the chainsaw devil eats another devil, which devils are, like, fears in that world, that fear disappears from the collective human consciousness. So, like, I think it's like at one point Chainsaw Man ate, like, the nuclear devil or something, and so, like, nuclear bombs just completely disappeared from the world, which was a really fucking cool reveal when Chainsaw Man did it. I'm not gonna say it's not a cool reveal in Undead Unluck, except for the fact that it means fuck all, because they resolved that conflict almost immediately. Like, that aliens showed up to invade, and then our number 1 seat, Juice, I think, Unjustice, just destroys them all immediately. So, it doesn't fucking mean anything. Nothing changed about the series, except that they got one step closer to Ragnarok. So, that is a thing that this show does. It sets up these really interesting stakes, and then immediately undercuts them. And it is so boring and frustrating. I can't do this anymore. We're gonna move on. Okay, I lied, because there's one other thing that really fucking frustrated me about this series. Andy has this little, they call it a card embedded in his head, but it's really just like a piece of metal that, like, he puts there to, like, trap his, like, 200 years of memory, locked it away. And when he takes that out during the spoil fight, or after the spoil fight or something, he turns into, like, his actual personality, which is Victor. And Victor is so fucking boring. I might actually do a whole, like, compare-contrast video on how boring he is, because if you're gonna have, like, a dark, hidden personality inside of a character, A, you have to make them at least as interesting as the base personality, if not more interesting. And B, there has to be, like, contrast. Like, take Digimon Ghost Game, for example. You have Galamon, this, like, very cute, bubbly, childlike Digimon. And when bad shit happens to him, and he has a little bit of a trauma dump moment, he digivolves into Gulus Gamamon, which is basically this fucking genocidal maniac. Contrast, and the way that Gulus Gamamon relates to the other characters, specifically, I forget what the main human character's name is, but the way that he relates to him is really interesting. Victor is just Andy, but less horny and more stoic and stronger. And and his design is basically just Super Saiyan 4 Goku, but less monkey. It's fucking boring. What are you doing? Get out of here with this shit. We're moving on.
Okay, Undead Unluck off the list, unfortunately. So let's see, we got 25 randoms left. So let's see what we roll next. 8. The Unwanted Undead Adventurer. Have not heard a single person talk about it. Maybe it's an underrated gem. Let's find out.
Okay, that's just the legendary hero is dead, but more boring. God, that was so boring and bland. I watched like almost 10 minutes of it and felt absolutely fucking nothing. So bland and so boring and so nothing. The character is completely uninteresting. The world is just standard fantasy world. The dragon design looked cool. I'll give it that. I got nothing to say. The animation's not terrible. It's like average. It is like a solid C grade, like solid C grade animation. Nothing particularly interesting about it, but nothing like terrible about it. Except sometimes the skeleton is in CG that this undead hero, adventurer, whatever it is. I'm sure we'll get to the unwanted part of Undead Unwanted Adventurer later, but I don't care. This is boring. We're moving on.
Alright. Unwanted Undead Adventurer is off the list. Let's roll again. Crank down the number generator. We got 24 left. 4. My instant death ability, something, something, something. The title was too long for me to put on here. I don't remember anybody talking about this for, well, maybe like the first episode. I don't remember. Let's find out if it's good.
Alright, I think that's the first isekai of the season, if I recall correctly. I might have forgotten some from a little while ago, but that sucked shit. I got, how far? A little under 3 minutes into my instant death ability is so overpowered no one in this world can stand against me. If the title didn't already explain to you why this show sucks, let's get into just a little bit of details. In the 3 minutes that I watched of this show, it looked like ass. Like, this is... Like, if the other show was, like, C-tier animation, like the Undead adventure one, if that was like C tier, this is like D minus tier. This is like just barely not failing. The character designs are rough and uninteresting and like not pleasant to look at. The terrible CG dragon looked like shit. Apparently High Dive could get uncensored titties for gushing over magical girls, but it couldn't get uncensored gore for this. Just got the thinnest streaks of black censorship bars to cover up what didn't really look like that much gore. That's not really a critique, but I just wanted to point it out. Main character is annoying as fuck already. And already, like, inconsistent in, like, characterization. Like, this bus full of high schoolers gets isekai'd into this world and immediately gets attacked by a dragon. I think it's supposed to be a comedy, but, like, it opens on so much gore that they don't play into that enough for me to think it's a comedy. I'm really not I don't know what the tone for this show is supposed to be. And, like, a dragon is, or technically a wyvern, whatever. A wyvern is attacking their bus. He throws a microphone at, I think, a tail that has impaled another student's, and the dragon, like, freaks out. I don't know why. And then, this guy, super aloof, I'm just a cool dude. I don't care about any of the, what's your name again? Ugh, I'm just a cool guy. Fucking asshole. The main girl with the big titties suddenly grabs his arm, and we see that he recognizes that her titties are, like, touching his arm. So immediately he's like, oh, I must kill this dragon. And so he says something, and then the dragon dies. Which is where I realized what the title meant. And that there was going to be absolutely no stakes in this show whatsoever. And then immediately after that, he just goes back to playing his fucking video game. So, I thought he was gonna be in it for the horny, which would have been funny, but he's not. So fuck this dude, and fuck this show.
Okay, instant death ability off the list. Let's crank down the number generator again and see what we get. It's going to be 2. Dog Signal. Okay, this is a show that absolutely no one watched and no one even licensed. So, I have no clue what to make of this. Hidden gem, maybe? I doubt it, but let's find out.
Well, I think I understand why this one didn't get licensed, because who the fuck wants to watch a 2-core anime that seems to mostly be about dog training tips? I got, how far into this show? Like 9 minutes? 8 minutes? I wanted to at least get to one of these, like, big informational sections, which I knew it was going to have. But, man, this show is, like, super mediocre in terms of animation and character designs and color design and pretty much anything in terms of the visual presentation. It is not fun to look at. They gave the main dog human eyes, but they gave the other dog, like, dog eyes. And the human eyes look fucking terrible on the dog. Also, since you've probably never even fucking heard of this show, the premise is This guy's girlfriend dumps him and then comes back a few days later and just leaves a dog with him, saying like, think of this as me. And so now it's about him trying to take care of this dog, I guess. And it says that he went around looking for a place to adopt the dog, but no one would take it. Japan has animal shelters. They are well equipped to take in dogs. He's not the brightest bulb in the fucking whatever, but he could have just Googled how to get rid of dog, I guess. He is a real dunce, and he's not fun to watch. And then we have, like, the actual skilled dog owner, who, like, so, like, the main dog is, like, running towards a cart, is about to get hit. And then this other guy just comes out of nowhere and, like, snaps his fingers from behind, and the main dog immediately stops and turns towards him. That's not how dogs work. That's not how dogs work. So, I can't even trust this show to get dogs right. Let's move on. Oh, also, this is the director of Spy Family, for some reason. I don't fucking know why. Wild.
Alright, dog signal off the list. We'll do one more random before we jump to our end caps. So let's see what we roll next. It's going to be 8. The Foolish Angel Dances with the Devil. Okay, I saw that the people liked the first episode, sort of, and then no one talked about it ever again, from what I saw. Let's see if it's funny or not. I hope it's funny.
No. No, that was not funny. That was not funny at all. I got about 5 minutes into this show. Every joke sucked. Every single one of them. Whether they were poorly timed, or didn't get the right tone, or were just outright fucking annoying. Nothing in this was funny. It's decent looking, and the main girl's really cute. But holy shit, this is not funny. I have nothing else to say.
Okay, Foolish Angel. Off the list. That sucked. Anyway, it's time for an end cap show, which means we are doing Brave Bang Bravern. This is a original super robot show by Masami Obari, I believe, who is like the super robot animator guy. I've heard a lot of really good things about this. Hopefully it aligns with my tastes. Let's watch some robots.
You know, I watched people post about this show constantly while it was airing. And even then, I still had no clue what I was getting into with this one. I just finished all of Brave Bang Bravern. This is the new original mecha series from Masami Obari. Sorry if they're hearing some background noise. The kids next door are playing basketball or something, I think. So, hopefully that doesn't get picked up on the recording. But, nope, there they go. This was a fucking insane show. This is a super robot series to its core, but also, while it is just being that and being it wholeheartedly like a very 70s, 80s style super robot show, it is also extremely self-aware that it is being that and constantly like ribs itself for being that. But never in like a I am above you, above being a super robot show kind of way. It loves the fact that it is a super robot show, but also is not afraid of making fun of itself or like calling attention to those tropes and like certain things that people might point out about this genre. Like Bravern, the robot, like constantly interrupts people when he's talking, either to just do an attack, like he will just interrupt a villain's monologue to attack, and like the music will like cut out when he does that for like comedic effect, or when he's just talking to one of the human like military people, he'll just interrupt them suddenly, either just to shout his name or to like go on some long, very verbose speech, and you can see the characters like getting pissed off at him, and it's like the even with like our main like pilot character Isami, you sort of have like that rejection of the call from the hero's journey. Normally with like mecha characters, it's like I'm like scared of fighting in this giant mech suit and stuff. With Isami, it's kind of like he just gets fucking weirded out by this giant talking robot, and like the fact that his clothes disintegrated while he was inside the robot because of all the weird energy exchange that was happening. And shit, it was so bizarre and funny and just very full of heart. Like, this has some really hype super robot moments. Now, full disclosure, I'm not really a super robot kind of guy. I'm more of a real robot Gundam kind of guy. I like tokusatsu. That's about as close as I get to super robots. Like, I like Power Rangers growing up. I like the little bits of Kamen Rider that I've seen. So, I like my transforming heroes. So, I like the concept. It's just super robots in particular have never been my realm of expertise, I guess. Except for when they show up in Power Rangers / Super Sentai. But I had a hell of a lot of fun with this one until... See, my only real complaints about this show, like, there's nothing like... There's no, like, underlying problems. There's no, like, things about the characterization. There's no, like, way the story is told. None of that I have a problem with. The only things that I really have problems with are the specific plot points that it does. And honestly, I don't want to give away some of the spoilers for this. Like, the first spoiler in, like, episode 8, I think, the first big twist, real big plot twist, I was like, holy shit, that's fucking incredible. And the more I thought about it, it made everything about the series beforehand make so much more sense. And then there was like a second big plot twist in the episode right after that that was kind of similar to the first twist, and I was like, that's like a hat on a hat, really. It didn't have nearly the same amount of impact, and I think the plot could have been written. I think that plot point, for the way that character develops in the end arc of this series, I think that could have been written differently without that plot twist. But it is starting to grow on me. I don't dislike it. It's just, it was a little, It just didn't have the same amount of impact, and it was like less well explained than the first plot twist. And then I have some gripes with the last episode, some of the ways that plays out, but also the last episode is really fucking hype. It's got that great super robot energy to it, where it's just like, why is this happening? Because bravery and courage and heart and passion. If you liked that succession of words that I just spouted off, you're probably gonna like Bravern. If you want a little bit more solidity to how your plot is conveyed, you're gonna hate this show. You really are. If you are not into just fantastical just becauseism, this show is going to drive you fucking insane. And for the most part, I was able to roll with it because it just looked really fucking cool. Like, this is a really well presented show in terms of like what is being shown to you. Like, I wish they weren't CG mechs, but they're not bad CG mechs. Some of the designs I don't quite vibe with. They're like over designed, but other designs are like really fucking solid. Bravern's design is really good. There's this one, it's like in the second to last episode, there's this like green robot that's really good. Has a really good design. And also has a fucking hilarious like plot twist revolving around how like his own threat level, let's put it that way. The way that scene plays out is fucking hilarious. And right, I was talking about the visuals. Color design is really fucking solid, incredible. And aside from the CG mechs, those are well animated, but even like outside of that, like the character designs are really solid. They feel familiar, but also very distinct in their the specifics of their aesthetic. The like explosion effects and like laser effects and stuff are really fucking good. There's like some really juicy looking explosions in this that are just really fucking cool to see. The combat could get a little confusing looking sometimes just because it's a bunch of robot models spinning around really fast. But it wasn't like disorienting or terrible or anything. And when he does the big named attacks and stuff, it's like super hype and fun. This show is just really fucking hype and fun. And the way that the characters' relationships grow and intertwine over the course of this series was really fun to see. Like, these characters like grow naturally from just like sort of hanging out with each other to like being genuinely like best friends, perhaps more than that, because this is also by far the most homoerotic show that I have seen in a very fucking long time. And I watched Cherry Magic a couple weeks ago, which was a yaoi series. Bravern is gayer than that. There's like a ton of like sex innuendos in this show about Isami being inside Bravern and Bravern talking about how good it feels to have Isami inside him. It's fucking incredible just how bashing you on the nose with it they are. It's so hilarious. If you don't believe me, just watch the ending theme. Watch the ending animation for this. So incredibly gay. It is so gay and cool. Did I have anything else to say? I don't think so, really. I felt like I had something else to say. Yeah, Bravern, absolutely not at all what... Oh, right. There was a fucking Kona Big Wave cameo in this. The beer, if you drank that, that shows up in the first episode. And I think, like, in one other episode, they actually, like, say it by name. And I was like, what the fuck is this doing here? That was so wild to see. Yeah, Bravern's really fucking good. A really great original robot series from the robot animator animating the robot animating master himself, Masami Obari. This guy's been working since the 80s on Mecha. If you don't know who I'm talking about, he's the guy who does... I think I talked to him about him already in the Gundam Metaverse episode section from last season, because he did that too, but that sucked because it was corporate garbage. But if you've seen any character, like, where it's like they like bring their sword down and like the sword is like pointing towards the camera at like a diagonal angle, that's it. That's called the Obari pose. It's just like the something like that. Like, so they have a pose in anime named after him, and everyone fucking uses that pose now. And I was very happy every time that pose showed up in this show. Yeah, Bravern, fun time.
Alright, Bravern is complete. And we're going to scroll up to the number 2 spot for the year, and you're getting a light 8. Very fun show. Would recommend if you like giant robots.